Yes, hello people. I don't know what's going on. For some reason it's not showing the game. It should. Ah, yeah, it is working here. But for some reason the game is not showing up on the screen. So I might just have to re-add it. Hmm. It's kinda weird. I don't think I've had this problem before. Yes, Mono 32 game. Nope, not showing up. And it's also not behind some other stuff. So I guess I'll just re-add it. Or something. Window capture. Yeah, alright. Nah, this is better. A little big. Alright, let's see. There we go. Should show up now. Also, there's no sound for me. Ever since I installed Unreal, everything seems to be going haywire. That's been messing with my computer. Yeah, remember this? The Pong thingy that every time you hit the ball, your paddle gets smaller. Ah, this actually works quite well as a single player game. Oh, never mind. Yes. I wanted to talk a little bit about object-oriented engineering. Something I've noticed people are struggling with, which is a shame. Because it should be something that, well, it'll take a while. It took me over 2 years to really get the hang of it, but it should be something that's like second nature to people at some point. At some point in time. It should be very easy to do and almost comes naturally. First, we just clear what we have now, so we don't need it anymore. Let's pretend like this is an empty game. Fine, don't need this. If I run it now, it should be empty. Yep. Good. So, I've seen a lot of people struggle with the idea of inheritance, what it actually does, and how you can actually use it correctly. For example, you see people creating scenes or something that inherit from game object, but then have an animal or an enemy inherit from scene again, because it contains some functionality you want. Which might make sense from a programming perspective, as in it contains functions and methods and such that you want in your enemy object. But from a syntactical perspective, an enemy is usually not a scene or something like that. So it also has to make sense logically. And object-oriented programming always thinks in objects, as the name suggests. Like ball and paddle are very common terms in like Pong games to represent the ball and the paddle, and you'll have them behave in the way they should. But you can also have a fastball, which could inherit from the normal ball, and for example, give the X and Y speed a little boost, like make it go slightly faster. You can have a small ball that can inherit from ball as well. In fact, I'll show you. It doesn't have to be super complex to have inheritance. You can build super complex structures with it, obviously, but the basics are relatively easy. You can think of use cases in a fun way. So let's say you have like a ball and well, we can just call it a fastball, which is exactly what it is. Fastball, let's see, yes, automatically generates everything that I don't need. GXPEngine. By the way, did people make games in the GXPEngine during the game jam? I don't think I've seen any. Maybe one or two people that tried, but... Yep. Made my first mistake. So, what you're basically saying here is that fastball is a ball. By saying it inherits from ball, fastball is a ball, but it does something a little extra. Ball does all these things, but a fastball does all these things, but a little faster. Now we have the X speed and the Y speed here that is used to calculate how fast the balls go over the screen. I'll just maybe put back some of the stuff with the ball, but nothing else. Actually I can leave the paddles in. Why not? Didn't break anything. 1, 2, 3. Yep, still works. So the fastball is a ball, but we want the X speed and the Y speed to be higher, maybe twice as high as they are by default. So these variables, float underscore X speed, float underscore Y speed, those are the variables we want to adjust. And because they are marked private, you are not allowed to edit them anywhere else but this class. So if I try to access them here, underscore X speed equals 1, it'll probably give an error saying it's inaccessible due to its protection level. Private being its protection level. But if I were to make this one protected, that means that only this file and anything that inherits from it can use it. So now the error should go away. And maybe, because it already has a value when it starts, we can just say X speed instead of 265, we'll make it 512. And same for Y speed. Whoops. 512. And that's it. It doesn't do anything else differently. It still starts in the middle, still does all the things it needs to do. Origin, all that stuff, yeah, seems fine. All of that's still there. But the only thing we wanted to be different is the speed. So here we create the ball. So this is the normal ball. 1, 2, 3, play. Tink. Tink, relatively slow. But we can now just say fastball. Tink. 1, 2, 3, tink. Well, you can see it's a lot faster. Whoa. Actually, this is probably more fun. Anyway, notice that I didn't change anything else. Like, because the fastball is still a ball, we can say like, well, we have a private variable of the type ball, but we initialize it as a fastball. But if you don't need to access any of the properties that only a fastball has, like let's say this one has a launch method, public void launch. Doesn't do anything for now, but just to demonstrate. This ball, the normal ball, does not have that method. So if I want to call the launch method here, nope, nothing we can do. Because we create a fastball and it will behave as a fastball, but it's stored in a normal ball variable. If I were to create this as a fastball, then the launch property will become launch method will become available. Let's see. Inheritance often describes an is-a relationship. Fastball is a ball, which is correct. I wouldn't inherit enemy from level, for instance, since enemy is not a level. Usually when you inherit from another class, you make the new class more specific. At least that's how I see and use inheritance. Yes, that is a very good way to see and use inheritance, I think. Point is really that you extend upon functionality that already exists. and it needs to make some sort of logical sense. So fastball being a ball, sure. Enemy is not a level. No, it seems weird, right? I mean, you could have like a boss, but then the boss would be an enemy, and the level would just still be a level that contains an enemy boss, or something like that. But I've seen people that had like several different enemies, but the only difference was the color. So they used the same sprite, but the only thing different was the color. And this is a perfect situation for a class with some parameters. For example, let's say we also introduce the color here. Why not? Just have to see how it's stored. Color? uint. Okay, sure. So we pass in a color. And that's the only thing we do different for the ball, other than that it also has a higher speed. So we set the color to color distance equals color to reference the color of the instance, and this is the color of this variable. I can make it slightly more clear by doing something like this. Color. I hate it, but just to indicate that this variable is this one. And this color references the property that we inherit from ball, which inherits it from sprite. What about inheritance to gain functionality as an interface? So C# does have interfaces as well. If you want, interfaces are slightly more complex than normal inheritance, because in normal quote-unquote inheritance, you create a class that has certain functionalities, you inherit from that class, and everything that is not marked private, you inherit from the class you're extending. If you have an interface, the only thing you're saying is, I promise that this class will have these functions. How they're implemented, you say nothing about it. And there's also no default implementation. For example, here, well, let's say, what do we use that as a default implementation? Set origin. We could override it. If I mark it as override, set origin, does it do anything? No, I don't even think I can override it because it's not marked virtual. If the functionality already exists, like bounce horizontally is a functionality that exists in ball. If we were to mark this as virtual, oops, missing the keyword, virtual public. If we marked it as virtual, then we would be able to override it in our fastball, for example. Then we could say, what was it called again? Bounce horizontally. Override public void bounce horizontally. It will automatically autocomplete it for me. That's nice. Go away. We already have some functionality in bounce horizontally's parent in ball. It already exists. And you can call that via the base variable, which is also what you use if you want to call the constructor of the thing you're inheriting from, like this, base, which is also implied. Interfaces are basically little contracts. They force the class which implements this interface to have certain functionality. That is exactly right. In fact, in Objective-C, they are called something to that extent. They're called, you have an interface, and I forgot the name. But it is basically a little promise you make to whatever you're using. Let's see, Objective-C interface. Because interfaces are something different. Protocol, that's what it's called. In Objective-C it's called a protocol, which even like makes the promise aspect of it even more clear than an interface does. So we already have some functionality, and an interface just says, no default functionality, I just want you to have this bounce horizontally method. You need to promise me that you have it, basically. So you might wonder, why ever use interfaces? Is that ever better than normal inheritance? And, well, it has one huge benefit. You can only inherit from one other class. like the fastball is a ball, but you can implement infinite interfaces. So if you had an interface for something that needs to bounce, you can have an I bounce interface, and you can have an I hittable interface, and all this stuff, and you would have to implement these functionalities. Not necessarily in the way you contract, but rather in the promise that such a function always exists, albeit overriding the most common one. Sure. However, the function might just exist in the first place, like in the observer pattern. If I understand you correctly, I don't think it is a promise that that the method will exist, and the compiler will force you to implement it before allowing it. However, the function will not be implemented by default, though there's probably no way to compile your code if you don't implement it, unless you hack into the compiler a little bit. But yeah. So the case that I mentioned, where different enemies have different colors, this is a perfect example of when you can use, like, the only thing that's different is the color. So why not, every time you make a fastball, give it a certain color? This one we can make black, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think this will work. Actually, I'm not sure if you can see it in the background. Nope, can't see it anymore. Maybe make it red. Hexadecimal code for red. Yep, now it's quite red. But maybe we have 2 balls, which don't take that out of context. Just ball 2, new fast ball 0x00ff00. Now hopefully they won't spawn at the same place. Ball 2. I think the ball automatically places itself in the middle. No, it just sets the origin correctly. When it resets, it places itself in the middle. Okay. Which it does at the end of the constructor. Okay, I kind of forgot how my own code worked. So that means at this point it's centered as soon as it's added as a child. So we can then just add a little bit to the X. Move it to the right, let's say 64 pixels. Now we should have 2 balls, yes. Green one and a red one. And there goes the green. Red one's still in play. But that way, you only need 1 constructor. And you can even index 0, you can even add a bunch of them via a loop, let's say 10, without having to adjust anything else. The color will be adjusted, the rest of the functionality is exactly the same. Let's see, I was not aware C# compiler enforces overriding of virtual methods, so that they must be pure virtual. Oh, as in C++ pure virtual. No. They don't force you to override virtual methods. In fact, virtual just means that they can be overridden. But in an interface, they do force you to implement them. In a class inheritance, it's okay. You can leave it. If they're marked virtual, they can optionally be overridden. Yeah. Abstract functions slightly different, yeah. But phew, these are all pretty hardcore object-oriented terminologies. It is exactly like Java, pretty much, yeah. They do the same. They have a lot of the same conventions in general, it seems. Times index, I guess. Does it work? Doubt it. Anyway, plus equals 64 times index. So we move to the right a little bit and add child. I've also seen a lot of people not using loops when they could. Instead, they do what I did here, like create a ball 1, a ball 2, ball 3, ball 4, etc., etc. Instead of creating a loop and that just creates a new ball. puts it somewhere based on the index, and adds several in a row. Don't know what I did. Oh, I made them black. That's what I did. That doesn't work. I can't see them. They seem to be bumping into to the paddle. Yes. Yep. There they go. All of them at the same time. But yeah, not the greatest example of when to use loops, but it is one example. C++, the concept of an interface isn't really present. No, not as such. They kind of hacked it in later by making something, what's again, pure virtual. Marking it virtual and saying equals 0, which means there's no pointer to this function yet, and you'll have to create one, I guess. I'm not sure. Feels a bit hacky, but that's how they solved it back in the day. Yeah. I've been doing a lot of Unreal stuff lately, and I'm running into a lot of these C++ quirks. And I'm beginning to appreciate C# more and more for what it is. There's so many different ways you can solve a problem in C++, and none of them are actually like very good. Alright, let's remove the color again. Anyway. I don't want to see any like enemy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 classes. I want you to be able to, unless they're completely different types of enemies, but then call them flying enemy, walking enemy, stuff like that. In your game, you don't need to call them enemy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That doesn't make sense, right? From an object-oriented perspective, an enemy 1 and an enemy 2, they're both enemies. What's the difference except for the number at the end? C++ is constant expression, which is great. Sure. If you're a masochist, then yeah, it's great. Let's see. You guys you'll be getting your fill of C++ next year, I'm sure. I wanted to try something that I haven't tried with the GXPEngine yet, but I'll need to clear this out a little bit. Something simple, but I want to be able to drag. Basically, do similar to what Angry Birds does. Like you should be able to click somewhere, drag a little bit, and then if you release, it'll shoot something in the point that you dragged your mouse, and then with the amount of power being influenced by however far you dragged it. Alright, first though, I am trying building my level. I am reading through the slides and saw you show an example of using an array with numbers, with each number being a different tile. Ah yes, true. This is if you want to set up a level that has somewhat of a tile-based structure, right? Like in some of the examples in the sheets, but also during the lecture, I used numbers to represent wall, lava, coin, and player spawn point, I believe. Correct? I'll grab a drink real quick. I haven't eaten much today, so I need to keep my strength for my drinks. I think in the example, maybe I can find it somewhere on my laptop. In the example, I used a double array of sorts. Sectional game programming levels. Yes, I have the example code here as well. I'll just close this one first. And hopefully it'll pick it up immediately when I start the other one. Let's see, this one. Not sure if this is the example I used. I think so, yes. Yes, with the whoop. Ah yeah, I kinda... Ah, there, oh, okay. I think I made the camera follow you to the left, but then stop as soon as you hit the right side. This is one level that I used numbers to generate, basically. You can see it, oh wait, slightly on top of the editor again. You can see it here in the background. let's see, I have a definition here. 1 equals a coin, 2 equals lava, 3 equals ground, 4 equals player. So you probably should only need 1 player. I guess, well, I don't know what happens if you add several. Ah, you got 2 people that move in unison. Sweet. Okay, didn't know. Ah, they do exactly the same movement. Yeah, probably not what you want unless you're going for a, what's the game again? Brothers type of game. Wall exists if hungry, drink. Yes, that is how I solve most of my problems. Not by drinking. Well, by drinking non-alcoholic. Let's see, before I talk myself into an even bigger hole. The way this level is structured. It's, the key point is this, really. You have a private int with the array symbols, with the square bracket, but with a comma in between. Oh, can't zoom in on this. With a comma in between, meaning this array is 2-dimensional. It's an array of arrays. Which allows you to basically, how do I do it here? Oh yeah, like this. Can I make this bigger? Zoom in? Yes, I can zoom in. Cool. Not too big. So this little point there says this is an array of arrays. This thingy between the brackets is one array, comma, this is another array. So you basically have a bunch of arrays in one array. And that means you can access them in a pretty clever way via also in just of having one number. If it was a single array, like something like array, I don't know if you can even do that, but like this, you would access it with a normal number, 0 being the first, 1 being the second, and all the way up to the length of the array minus 1. But with a 2-dimensional array like map data, you can access them way more easily. You can access the first array with the first number, x value usually, and the second, and then a number in the array with the y value. So what you're doing basically is twofold. You're first getting the array that contains, or like you're retrieving one of these arrays at position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then from that array, you're retrieving the y value. So it does 2 steps for you. Basically, it does map data x, and gets that array. I don't know, this won't work, but and then the actual tiles, it retrieves from this array, like this, with the y value. So you're doing it in 2 steps, really, but those 2 steps can be merged into 1 step by using a 2-dimensional array. So this x value retrieves one of these bad boys, and then the y value retrieves anything within that array. So what I do here is I iterate from 0 all the way to the width of the map. Then for every time I do that, I do an entire loop over all the rows in the map. So I go from top to bottom, and then I retrieve the row representing the y value, I guess. And and the column representing the x value. So it's the other way around. Yeah, I guess so. Is it mirrored? Did I do it the wrong way around? No, this is correct. 3, 3, 0, 0, 3, 3, 3, 0, 0, 3. No, this is correct. So yeah. So what you're doing is really just getting one of the numbers out of this matrix-like array system here. That's it. And that number, I switch it. And every time, each number represents something. 0 meaning nothing, so we can skip it. But I added zeros here to make sure that first of all the arrays are the same size, which makes it easier to process. And second, it looks nice here. So you can actually see what your level kind of looks like. Yeah, switch case, and for everything you create one of them, whatever you need to have there. And the way you calculate the X and Y position is based on which row and column you retrieved it from. So the X position based on the column times the width of the sprite, the X position of the row times the height of the sprite. Yeah, that's basically, I think all the sprites are the same size, so this will work, otherwise it won't work. But because we're using we're using sprites that are all 64 by 64 pixels, so this will neatly line up with each other. That's one way to do it. So the problem really is maybe setting up this typical 2D array type structure and parsing it correctly. Oh yes. So I'll show you this coin class right here. So if it finds a 1 within the tiles, it creates a coin, and the coin is really literally nothing more than an image in this case. Of course, you can add functionality to it. If you collect it, it will make a bling or something, like a bling sound. Stuff like that. You can add stuff to it, but in this case, it's just for demonstrative purposes. I think if you look at the other things like lava, I think that's also just a sprite. Yeah. The only thing you have to make sure of is that all the sprites are the same size. Otherwise, tiling doesn't really work. They'll start overlapping at some point. Ground is also just a sprite. Everything except for player, I think, is a new sprite. Player also contains some stuff for movement. Yeah. But that's it. And every time you create a new lava, every time you run into it, you create a new lava, you add it as a child. Done. We'll wait for the next loop. We check if it's larger than 0, because 0 means there's nothing, so only if it's larger than 0 do we have to do this entire switch case. Yeah. In this case, I've set the map height and width beforehand. So if I were to make them 8 by 8, for example, or let's just say easiest, because I have to type a lot, 5 by 8, I'll have to add 3 numbers here. 0, 1, 1. 0, 1. 0, 0, just an empty spot. 3, 3, 3, 2. This is all lava. Bottom part. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, this should work. I don't know why it's suddenly marked red. Did I change anything else? Array initialize of length 8. Oh! I'm using the width and the height wrong. Oh, good thing I found out now. I put them in the wrong place. Also explains why I thought the column and height were slightly wrong. So now it should stop complaining. Yep, now the map will look weird. Oh no, it's fine actually. Yeah. Except that I made the camera stop it. I'll just remove that real quick. Object to follow is set to the player. Let's not do that. Yeah. Yeah. So this way you can relatively easily make a level. But notice that I only need to change this variable to create a whole new level, really. So you could alter your level class. Yep, I think the music's on. Though I can't hear the music. Not even sure why I'm wearing this headset, I can't hear shit. Hang on, where's the thingy? This'll do. The only thing that really changes is the map data, because the way the level is generated will stay exactly the same, but the map data is different. So when we create the level here, we could say, instead of using the map data like this, we require a double or a two-dimensional array with that contains all the map data, which will now make sure that will cause an error here. And this stuff, so we require the level to get passed in something like this, map data. So I'll just put this over here, or in fact, don't even have to do it like that. I can just put it here. Int map data, what's it again? 5x8. So we create a variable with the map data. Don't know why it's laid out so creepily. Better. And we give that to the level. And the level will handle it for us. So instead of generating the level from the map data like this, we can just pass generate level the map data, and also give it so that it actually gets it from the parameter here. Change this one. In fact, this should already work, but it's not completely consistent. Yeah, it still works, still looks the same. However, this map.width does not exist anymore. But there's a clever trick you can do with two-dimensional arrays, and that is to get length, which will return the length of the array, and you can pass in the dimension. The 0th dimension being the first one, the 1 being the second one, really. It's the same as with arrays. So now, I think I don't use anything of these objects anymore. Let's see. Whoops, something went wrong. Out of the bounds of the array. That means I probably got them the wrong way around. Column, yep. Columns are... Yep. There we go. So now, I don't need this stuff in level anymore at all. I can just remove it. Because my game just passes in the level data that it needs to display a certain level. So if I were to change the level, for example, I'm going to make this into a private variable again and call this map data level 1. Or like this, level 1. Private map data level 1. Sure. Create something, another one of these, but call it map data level 2. And to make sure that it looks slightly different, I'm gonna put a lot of coins here, I guess. So, just to make it obvious that it's a different level. And I'm gonna put some lava in this guy. So initially, when the game starts, you pass in map data level 1, which should still just display the same level we used just now. Yes. But let's say your player finishes the level and you want to move on to the next level. Then you could say I'm just gonna do if I press the R key, get key down, key.R, I think, yes. If I press the R key, I'm gonna kill all my kids, destroy all my children, yes. I can remove all my children, or I can do it slightly easier. Make level into a private variable. And I was wondering if you could actually quick fix inline temporary variable. Nah. No? Nah. That's a weird fix. No, I'll just do it manually. Create a private level underscore current level. By default it's null. Instead of creating a level like this, I create it like this. There. Basically what we're doing now is saying like, hey, the game contains a private variable current level. We create it with the map data of the of level 1. And we add it as a child. Now when we press the R button, we call the destroy method on current level, which will remove it from the game. Then we create a new level just with map data level 2 and add it as a child again, because it will be removed as soon as you destroy it, I think. Let's see. So level 1, whoops, press R, level 2. Oh, and it also puts the player back in the spawn position. And now to make sure it doesn't just overlay, I'm gonna make make a small change in 2 that removes some tiles at the bottom. Here I am. Boop. Yep. You can very clearly see this is a different level. But the level class is still the same. My player still works because my player just knows how to work without knowing the level and whatnot. Boy, this is floaty ass controls. So there's only one level class. The only thing that changes in the level is the data. So why not just pass in the data when you create the level and have something else be responsible for which level data you're going to pass in? In this case, yeah, we store the level data here. But if you're feeling very adventurous, you can also make a 3-dimensional array that contains arrays of arrays of arrays. I think this is like this. I don't know if sure if that works. Just call it map data, which contains these double arrays of map data. So then, yeah, the first one is your level 0, 1, 2, and then this is the x value and this is the y value. So you can do some weird stuff with that. Or I think you can do another thing in C#, which is a double array. If you want to make it even more confusing. So it's an array of double arrays. And I think this works. I think you can do this. Map data equals first it's a normal double integer, no, normal array double ints like this, I think. You have to give it a size. I don't know. This is getting too complex for me. But you can do it. It's getting too much for my little head to process after a long day. But yeah, then you only have one variable that contains every level's map data, and then you can here when you press R, you level up. You add 1 to your level index, and you load the level data from the new index. C# has cost me 5 years of my life today. Yes. A list of integers is probably more sensible. Yes, it is. It also makes it way easier to add stuff. Something like not private list of double ints, and then call that one map data. And I guess I have to include list, which is in collections generic. By the way, if you press on Mac, it's Alt plus Enter. It will ask you like, do you want to include something? Which I guess is a good thing. Then in the constructor, I guess we can just add map data is a new list of double ints. Map data dot add, and then I get just add level 1. All of this, like this probably. Nope. Oh, I guess I have to say new int 5 by 8. God, it still works, but it's getting pretty ugly. Man, you can do a lot if you know the syntax. And the second level is this one. So you can add it. Like this. Now you have a list containing both your levels. And you can remove this again. It's getting more and more concise. Of course, you can read these from a text file or something as well if you're feeling adventurous. And then in this one, we just pass in. Oh wait, well, let's do it right. Let's private int current level number. You start at 0, I guess. So map data current level number. Yep. And if you press the R button, you move to current level number +1. Which will only work once. Oh, wait, not this. Map data ++ current level number. Yeah, this should work. Once. If I press it again, it will crash. Let's see, press R, blink, new level, press R again, crash. Yep, because there's no more map data. But this does make it relatively easy to add more levels to your game. Now I just do it like this. Maybe this one has a coin, there's a coin over here, another coin over there, coin in the ground. So that's all there is. Now I've added another level to my game. So if I press R once, next level. Press R again, another level. Yeah. It's usually worth the effort to set stuff up nicely for yourself. It can save you a lot of time in the future. Because now it's a matter of adding these arrays in the correct way, and you've added a completely new level to your game. Of course, if you want to be like certain it doesn't crash, which is probably a good thing, you do something like this. Current level number equals the maximum value. No, actually the minimum value of current level number +1 and how many levels we have, which is the amount of arrays we have in map data. So map data dot count, I think, -1, because if the map contains 1, then the index would be 0. So you need to deduct 1 to make sure you don't go out of bounds. So now we say the current level is either whichever one is smaller, current level +1, or the end of the last one we have. And then here we do current level number. So this means you can't go out of bounds. Level map bounds anymore. At least I think. Let's try. R. Yes, doesn't crash anymore. Pirate Beat is the new pirate. Yeah, there was a lot of pirate-based programming stuff. I'm afraid I fell short with the pirate theming this year. Not as much into the whole buccaneering thing, I guess. Whoops. Don't crash.
Stuff. Are the fucking snowflakes who are the kids who want to get awards for just fucking participating in
Maybe I'll do Unity and
what is this bullshit anyway? I'm
all pirately like. No, I probably won't. Um, Private pirate. Said his new private pirate. His new private pirate. Say that 10 times fast. First of all, dangerous. I don't know how to pronounce it. Does this answer your question sufficiently? I may have gone a little bit overboard by doing it like this and adding several maps and whatnot to it. But it should explain how you can make a level relatively easily. Sweet. Good. This is also nice, I think, for I don't know if you guys are too young for this, but do you know Bomberman? I think it's an extremely fun game. Like, the concept is so simple, but it's very, very fun. Especially when you do it multiplayer. If you have like 2 people controlling Bomberman, which is the Jewish Bomberman, I guess. Bomberman. The level layouts are all just one screen, which is very similar to how this layout could be interpreted. These maps are not too big, so it's easy to just type them out by hand. But in Bomberman, you can just you can think of maze-like structures like this and have blow-upable walls be represented by 2, and indestructible walls represented by 1, and you can basically build like 4 or 5 levels easy. Yeah, once you get this working, and you make sure that the players don't go through the walls, which is always something you have to fix later on. Blow-upable. It's a word. In fact, if this were Unity, I would recommend creating a blow-upable component or something. I mean, in English you can make anything a word, right? Blow-upable. I mean, blow up, I guess it's not really a word. Vacuum cleanable. It's actually also 2 words, I guess. Yes, German, everything is one big giant word if you want it to be. Dutch as well, I guess. As long as anything is one object. Camel casing wouldn't work in Dutch, come to think of it. The way we write level or variable names like map data would not work in Dutch. Because in Dutch, kaartdata, I guess, is one word. Which, boy, that looks ugly. I don't think I've ever programmed in Dutch. I don't think I'll ever will. You see a lot of... I've worked with a lot of Chinese companies, and they program in Chinese, and that is hard to follow, to say the least. Yeah. So, this is not necessarily inheritance, but this is a very good use of objects. Like, realizing that the only thing that's different between levels is which map data it displays. And the map data also contains where the player will spawn, because number 4 equals the player's position first when it rolls through. So by just changing out the map data, you can make several levels quite easily, and not having to make a level 1, a level 2, a level 3 class. First year of MBO, that was all we did, programming Dutch. What? I've never heard of that. That sounds pretty bad. Because programming languages are English, right? Like void, if, while, then, if. Like add, range, base, class, public, all this stuff, all English. To write Dutch mixed with English, I feel like that'll look pretty fucking weird. And it's hard to explain as well, I guess. I would not like it. But, I mean, in Swift you can now program with emojis. So that's cool. I don't know if you can do that here. Doesn't seem like it. What a waste. Like, I can kind of see the use of it. Because the emojis are just ASCII, right? So they're considered to be just letters and numbers. So instead of the level number you can use, like this variable, you can use a cat emoji, and you add one to the cat. That's good. I think you learn a lot from internships anyway. If only how like company structures worked, but also if there's some good people working there, you can learn a lot. Though internships are not for school, if you want to pass an internship, they're not as much about the jobs you do there, but more about how you handle them and how you handle yourself. LabVIEW automatically translate all function blocks into the language you installed it in, and also its visual program language. Oh, that sounds terrible. I for the Game Jam game, I made a simple VR game, which was really cool, but I was using the Oculus SDK, which only runs on Windows, so I had to use my Windows computer. And then I noticed that Visual Studio also installs itself in whatever language the operating system is in. So, luckily my operating system is English, but our artist was not. So I kept telling her to press the certain run or edit or debug key, which just wasn't there. It was Dutch, which is ugly and weird, and it makes it really hard to Google if you run into any problems. You guys had 2 internships? We have at least one more coming up for engineering. And your graduation as well, but that's not really an internship. That's more of a research and development phase. Let's see. It's already past 9. Is there anything I should cover? Any questions? Because next week the assessments are up. I think Mr. Iwei is taking a plane back to China. That sounded way meaner than I meant it to. He's going back to China to become a father. So he's going to be there with his wife. So he won't be here for the assessments. But Evans will take over for him. And I'll post a schedule online. Or at least I'll post a sheet online and people can put their name in, and we'll make a schedule. LabVIEW is industry standard for visual programming languages. Has the blocks like logical and makes sure a connection to acquisition data. Wow. I've heard of LabVIEW. I've never used it. I don't think it's very useful for game engineering, is it? There's what's it called again? Max RPS. It's a pretty popular visual programming language, and of course Unreal has blueprints, which is nice. I did upload the streams to YouTube. Good thing you mentioned it. I'll put the playlist on Blackboard after I've uploaded this one as well. I wanted to wait until all of the streams were done before I opened up my YouTube channel, where you should also be able to see my kick-ass VR game that nobody played because nobody knew we existed. And we worked really hard. We made a VR game jam game from scratch, and it worked pretty well. But nobody knew we were in the room we were in, so I cry. Oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense then. I've seen like LabVIEW and MATLAB, I guess, as well. I've seen that a lot in physics and engineering-based studies. Oh, you can borrow one from school. You should. We have 6 Oculus Go's, which I want to use for Unity. Or at least give people the opportunity to borrow one for the Unity course and have them build something for it, which is pretty nice. It's not as good as a normal Oculus or a 5, but it's still pretty good for what it is. And we also have 3 normal Oculi. Luckily I have my own, but I bought it on sale for 400 euros, which is still a lot of money, on Black Friday. Normally they're slightly more expensive. And I had a 5 before this, but I sold it because I thought the 5 Pro was coming out, and I wanted like the actual 5 Pro, not the thing that it released. And I wanted to get some money for my 5 before it became replaced. And turns out the 5 Pro, even though it was supposed to release exactly a year ago, still not here. So should probably. So I sold my 5 for 450 euros, and then I bought an Oculus for 400 euros, and I can promise you, the 5 is better. Way, way, way better. Beat Saber is amazing. Beat Saber is really fun. Yeah, my friend bought it for me. Virtual reality I thought was cool, but like Justin Roiland also made accounting, which is, I don't know if you guys know what it is. It's a free game because they made it as an experiment. But I do think they released like a full-blown Accounting Plus version, and it's hilarious. It's very much Rick and Morty because Justin Roiland does all the voices, but it's very funny. And it was completely free. I didn't know, like, it's so cool of them to do that. I plan to release our VR game for free as well, the current one. But because, I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was on Reddit, and it was pretty big for a little bit on the game dev subreddit. It was on the front page for a while. And so now we've decided to semi-quickly build it into a full game, and then try to release it on Steam. Because apparently people like the idea, which I'm very happy about. Whoops. Hey, no fighting. Squeaker. Right. If there's no more questions, I think I might go to sleep. It would be complete. If I would completely strip all the Fmod related stuff, would I be able to push my code to GitHub? I think so. I don't think we use any other libraries anymore. We use GTK. We used to use GTK, and I think that went open source. Manager OpenGL uses gl.ls. I think the Fmod part is the only thing keeping us from open sourcing this. Yes, and also it's kind of a, for now it's kind of a Saxion only engine. We've been asked to like share this engine with some schools in Spain, and in fact we did. We gave it to them, but we couldn't really support it because like they asked so many questions, and we already have students to help. But I think they now use it for their education as well. There's a bunch of development courses in in Spain that are now using the GXPEngine, or at least an old version. Fmod would solo UD in my game. I don't know. I would be very, very careful with doing open sourcing anything that you don't own. Like I've made part of the GXPEngine. Paul made a great part of it. Originally it was made by Bram for a huge part. Hans had some hands in it. But none of us really own it. It's owned by Saxion. And if Saxion wants to do something, like say, like actually we're going to sell it as a full-fledged game engine, which they won't, but just as an example. We're going to sell it as a full engine, and then it has to be removed from GitHub by everybody that put it on there. Because it could cause some major problems for them. Because Saxion owns the intellectual property, really. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm pretty sure that Saxion owns the intellectual property of everything we use and make for the school system. So, I wouldn't put it on GitHub just yet. But I can discuss it with the people. Like if I can discuss it with the engineering group. I don't see any problem with it becoming open source and people adding functionality to it. In fact, we were planning on doing that, but there's some caveats we have to be very, very careful of. And also, it has to be kept in mind that this is a learning tool. It is a game engine, but like we said, the collision detection is way too heavy and stuff like that. So obviously people will want to improve on that, but there's a purpose on why it's so bad, to show you how to optimize code and such. With an example, if you have a lot of objects in your scene and you use on collision, your game will get slow very fast depending on how good your CPU is. So that's all for learning purposes. We leave that in on purpose. Of course we know how to do it slightly better, but in fact we teach you how to make it slightly better next quarter, in like 2 or 3 weeks after your project. So there's a reason why some things are in there, which so we have to write like a pretty good declaration of why we open sourced it and what the idea behind the engine is. Like, it's a learning tool. Bug fixes like and new features, fine, but no upgrading of functionality that is purposefully kept slightly simplified. Physics is a fun course, I think so. It's pretty complex, but it's pretty math heavy, and you need to understand object-oriented programming quite well. But if you can do both math and physics and object-oriented programming, you'll have a breeze. If you have to do either one of those, like, yeah, you'll have to learn. Like, you'll have to spend some time learning. Anyway, I'll make a schedule and I'll upload the streams to YouTube, the ones that I haven't yet, and then I'll put that link on Blackboard so people can watch it if they haven't found them yet. I think I just opened them on like you might be able to find them on YouTube already. Don't think so, but maybe. Yes. Any questions before the assessments? Feel free to email me, or whoever your lab teacher is, and I'll be sure to see if I can answer in time. Next week will be a busy week for me. For you guys as well, because you probably have a lot of assessments and whatnot. But for me as well. Because this is always the time where we get to do extra work. Because we don't have anything else to do. They think. But no. Alright. Anyway. Only one. Oh, that is lucky. So you have time to prepare. Because, like, game programming is a pretty heavy subject. Especially if you're just starting out. It's not easy. Nobody claims it's easy. It's pretty difficult even. Alright, I think I have everything. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm going to go to bed because I've been awake for almost 18 hours. And I'm pretty tired. So, good luck. Good luck with the assessments. I'll see you guys show up on Thursday, I think. I think everybody's on Thursday. And I'll split you guys up. Yeah, you're welcome. Hopefully it'll help. And good luck with this, and I'll see you guys on Thursday. And I'll post on Blackboard the schedule and the link to all the streams. Yeah. Good night.